Hello, welcome to Riska's Cafe Q&A hosted by the Riska Mollies. We are going to start by a land acknowledgement. It is Riska's practice to acknowledge that the lands on which we are meeting via Zoom are Indigenous lands. Our offices in Providence are on the ancestral homelands of the Narragansett Nation. Riska is a committed ally, and as artists, we honor the Indigenous people, their ancestors, their culture, and their artistic representation, past, present, and future. We recognize the continued existence and contributions of Indigenous peoples to our society. And I'm going to turn it over to Molly for slides.
Good. Do you have
going to be confusing? Molly,
Molly, we're going to deal with that. Do you have the first slide there, Molly?
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, I still have Cafe Q&A.
Right, that's the first slide. Okay.
Yes.
So the name of this program is Cafe Q&A: How to Avoid Common Mistakes when Applying for Opportunities. So we always like to help artists improve their process, and we know that this is not the easiest platform to use. So let's start with some introductions. There's two of us. So Molly made this wonderful diagram explaining, the things that we share in common and how we're different. You can discuss it.
So we have a several slide Molly Venn diagram. On the orange side is Molly D, and on the purple side is me, Molly F. So I will just say we understand why you get confused, and we're not ever going to be mad about it. So some things we have in common is that we're both nice. I like to think we're nice. We're both kind of generic middle-aged white ladies. We both have naturally brown hair. Neither of us live in Providence, which I think is important to note in a state like Rhode Island. We can usually be found sitting next to each other knitting in meetings because we're both pretty serious knitters, and we both work at Riska, and our names are both Molly. So that's the first Molly Venn diagram. Next Venn diagram. So here's a Venn diagram about our artistic practices. As I mentioned, Molly and I are both pretty serious knitters, and we do like to share our knowledge and sit next to each other in meetings. Molly is also a painter and a drawer, and so here's a wonderful picture of her plein air setup in, is this the dunes?
Yep, out in Cape Cod.
The dunes out in Cape Cod. And on the left is an image from a 3-day jazz festival that I was the lighting designer on before I started my job at Riska at a museum in Arizona. So we have some overlapping artistic practices, but we also have very different artistic practices as like sort of professional artists.
And I think it's important to note that everyone who works as an administrator at Riska also is an artist in and of their own right, and that informs our approach to the work.
Yes. So. Do you want to take this one, Molly?
We also share in common that we're both gardeners in our individual situations. So Molly F. Cultivates indoor houseplants because she lives in an apartment. I cultivate outdoor houseplants, and we both love nature, and the color orange seems to be a theme here.
All right, this is maybe my favorite one. So we both have some dependents. They're very different. I have 4 cats, which was one of the reasons in the indoor garden view you saw a bunch of things blocking the bottom row of cats. But I have 4 cats. Those are my 4 cats. And Molly has 2 kids who are both adults, young adults, and a very old dog.
A very old dog. And we throw this in there because a lot of times, particularly in recent years, people are dealing with Riska from a distance, virtually on Zoom. We're people too, and we're all navigating this reality together.
Yeah.
What do we do at work?
Yeah, so here we are. So our overlap is that we both are it's both our job and our passion to support artists. At Risca, we do it in slightly different ways, but we also work together and communicate a lot. So when you email one of us on accident instead of the other one, it's never a bad thing. We'll just send it really quickly. So I support specifically artists who live and work in Rhode Island. And my job is to support them through Risca grant applications, technical assistance around things like legal issues or tax issues or basic business things. And then I also co-administer the Artistic Works sales tax exemption with the Division of Taxation.
Yep. And my job is administering the percent for art law. I also have the cultural facilities bond in my portfolio, and I work closely with local artists who are interested in entering the public art field. We both work with artists, and we work very collaboratively together as well. So today's presentation, what is café and why should you use it? So callforentry.org is an online entry platform for lots and lots and lots of art opportunities, whether it's public art, murals, residencies, exhibitions, you name it. And it's really the industry standard for public art for sure. And there's an entire world of opportunities in there if you learn how to use it. And I'm really adamant about this. If somebody wants to be working in the field of public art, they have to use café and use it well, because this is where the opportunities are. So if I work with somebody individually to facilitate the process, to offer technical assistance, if they learn how to use café once, they've learned how to use café forever, and they move around the bases. So sometimes people will say, well, why don't you use something easier like Google Forms? This is where it is, and you have to learn how to do it. Use of café allows panelists to compare artists on an even footing. So one artist might have a really flashy, professionally designed website, and another one might have an Instagram, but when their work goes into café, they're all presented the same way. So it really allows the panel to focus on your artwork and not on advantages like a professional website. Oops, I'm sorry. And then the other thing is using café indicates to the panel that that you're professional in your practice, that you know how to do these things and have achieved a certain level of expertise and accomplishment. So I'm really adamant about using it. Oops, sorry, my touchpad's really sensitive. Okay, so people complain about café. It used to be much more difficult. And about 1.5 years ago, they updated the back end of it. It looks the same, but some of the functionality is much better and easier to use. So some of the most common frustrations was the need to resize photos in advance. For the most part, that's been fixed, and JPEGs up to 5 megabytes can be uploaded. You can use it in Firefox, Chrome, Safari, or Microsoft Edge browsers. You do need to use a computer or a tablet. Trying to do this off a phone is not going to work and will bring you to tears. So if you don't have a computer or a tablet, this is where you can get help from Risca. You can go to the library, use a computer, borrow an iPad from a friend, any number of things. Okay. Any questions? I'm assuming people will chime in. Okay.
And you can also drop questions in the chat if you need, and I will be monitoring that, and I can chime in.
That would be great. So what I did here, because we're recording this and can make it available later, I made some static slides for people to refer back to later. So to use café, the first thing you need to do as an artist is to make a profile or update your existing. So when you go to café, this is what you get. You're going to select artist login. So if you're new, you're going to sign up. And if you're applying for something with an existing profile, you really do want to check your information and make sure it's current before you start applying. And this is where you do it. And up here is the callforentry.org. Once you've done that, you're going to select My Profile, and you're going to double check to make sure that all your information is correct here. I say this because we hear from people, oh, I don't really check that email is a common one, or that's my own cell phone. So every time, do check your profile, make sure it's current. So here's some examples. Is my phone number correct? Is my email address correct? Because if somebody actually wants to designate you for this opportunity, they need to be able to reach you. Website. When you put a website into a field like this, please make sure it's fully formatted. Sometimes people will just put name.com, but if you go to paste that in a browser or click on it, it's not the full link and it becomes a dead link, a dead end. So you want to make sure that what you put in there actually goes to the right place and becomes a live link. So put in the HTTPS if you need it, www if you need it, copy the full address. Sometimes people put here a link to a Drive folder. Do not do that. Panelists will be typically reviewing several hundred applications on their personal devices. And if you give a link to a folder, they have to download or click on those to view them. And they worry about getting viruses on their computer. You want to make things easy for people because imagine there's 350 applications. If it's difficult, that panelist is maybe not going to look at your work in as great a detail. Make sure the links work. I had somebody submit a link recently for a website. It had been hacked. It took me to a pornographic website. So not a great representation of their artwork. Okay, Molly and I put together some notes on if you do not have a website for your artwork yet. Creative Ground is the New England Foundation for the Arts free artist directory. We highly recommend that all artists in Rhode Island register for this, whether they have their own website or not. This is a place where people can go and search on specific disciplines. If they want a dance teaching artist, for instance, they can put that in and find every, dance teaching artist in New England. If they want a muralist for Rhode Island, they can view, so it allows them to whittle it down. If you create a profile within Creative Ground, you become discoverable in a search engine. So it's a way to get around having a website and still have a searchable web presence. There's lots of low-cost platforms to create free or low-cost websites. GoDaddy is one that will give you a free one-page site. Artwork Archive is about $5 a month for a basic site. If you get into things like Squarespace, Adobe Portfolio, they're $11 to $16 a month. Squarespace can be added on to become an e-commerce site. So sometimes people think that a website's really expensive, but if you back it out on a per month cost, it's really like 2 trips to Starbucks, and you're investing in yourself. Biggest pet peeves with artists' websites. Limit your website to your artistic practice and make sure the artwork is showcased. Photos that have people in it, that show an event, make it hard to actually see the artwork itself. That type of imagery is great on something like your blog post, on your Instagram, but keep your website clean and showcasing the artwork first. And then if desired, provide additional links to video, to Facebook, to Instagram, whatever else you like to add there for more newsy or chat related type posts. Inappropriate content on your website. For instance, if your artwork is sexually based or has sexual content, for instance, clearly mark it within a separate link so that somebody chooses to view that first. It doesn't mean you have to remove it, but give them the choice. So I've made this example, magazine illustrations, sexual content. If somebody clicks on that, they've agreed to view that. And again, make sure people can contact you. Don't make it difficult. Then we have some notes on Instagram. If you use Instagram, create one account that's just for your arts businesses and do not mix in personal posts. You can have 2 Instagram accounts. Instagram's great for, and Facebook is great for announcing events, performances. It's harder to actually see the artwork within it. So it really doesn't substitute for a website. I'm going to exit out of this for a minute. I'm going to show 2 examples we pulled up. I'm going to do that and that. So here is my friend Molly Flanagan's hand poured small things, Instagram, LMNO. So these are, you can talk about this, Molly.
So I think, so we're going to look at my Instagram today. So this one is solely for LMNO cement. As you see, it only has my cement stuff. It doesn't have my personal life on it. But what it does have that's different from my website is some process pictures, like the bottom picture in the middle that you see of the plants on a little plant stand. That's my kitchen counter. The caption is about trying out new displays for markets. New plant display. It looks great. It looks better than that in person, I promise. I've tweaked it a little bit since then. So it has some process pictures. It has some stuff with some more personality than my website. Also, all of my events where you can see where I'm at and what I'm doing. That's a really solid addition to marketing for an artist is an Instagram, but as you see, it's just my cement. So when somebody looks, when I say to somebody, oh yeah, I do this stuff, and I'm like in a little shop, like last week I was at Jordan's Jungle buying some houseplants like I do. It's also really close to my apartment. And I was like, oh, you guys do artist pop-ups. Here's my Instagram. And they were like, yes. But you know what I didn't have to do? Scroll through like my photos of me on my date night, like you would see on my personal Instagram. Which has like fun things that I do in my life. It has my date night. It has something super political that may not be maybe off-putting. It has vacation pictures. It has a picture of my booze. So it's not a good, and you have to get all the way down here to see anything of my cement. And it's really a picture celebrating the fact that I have a burrito while I'm personing my market table. So it's not a great representation. And a lot of artists mix them together more, which is sort of fine, but it's not good to submit that for a grant application or for a request for proposals or for a public art commission, because they don't want to fish through all of your personal life. They just want to see the artwork. They just care about the artwork. Think about it, and I know Molly has this in a slide, think about it like a job interview.
That's right. So separate, if you use Instagram for chatty stuff about your artwork, make sure that it's not mixed in with your personal Instagram. Make 2 accounts. I think that's a large pet peeve we have in a lot of applications as we look to help Rhode Island artists professionalize their presentations. So we did that. So in Café, you can work in collaboration. If you're applying as a partnership, make sure you provide all the information on your partner. If you're working in a partnership, or if you are applying on behalf of somebody, please submit the application under the name of the principal artist. So I have a pet peeve of seeing applications for an artist. They're submitted by perhaps somebody in their studio, a studio manager, an office manager. The application comes in with the co-worker's name on it, but it turns out the principal artist that has a different name, and they're applying on behalf of the principal artist. Make sure that the materials are clear. So if you are applying on behalf of Joe Schmo, to use a fictional name, put the application in under the name of Joe Schmo. The contact can be Lisa Schmo, office manager, but don't put the application in under Lisa's name. So be honest and correctly represent the principal creative partner in the application. It may sound kind of simple, but I do see this a lot. Hey, sign up for notifications. When you're in there in your profile towards the end, it will ask, what kind of notifications do you want? One of the reasons people book their calls on Café and pay Café a fee to manage the call is because Café will also push notices out to artists. So it doubles as a marketing budget. So sign up for opportunities and look at them, you know, every Saturday morning, go through and look at those opportunities. This is how you will find opportunities, and it's free. If you unclick these, then you're only getting half the functionality out of Café. Okay, so after you've created your profile, the next step is to put some imagery in your portfolio. So you're going to then go from my profile to my portfolio. You're going down the line here, and you're going to add media. And when you click add media, the next thing it's going to ask you is what you want to upload. So from this drop-down menu, you can add an image, you can add a video, or you can add an audio file. And then you're going to choose your file. And here are the image requirements right there. It's going to be a JPEG, 5 megabytes or less. Oops. And if you need help, if you click on that Café help, there's a whole help article on just file requirements. Special note on iPhone photos. So a lot of us have this tool and it's wonderful. Miracle of the modern world. Newer ones use the HEIC format, and you have to export it as a JPEG in order to get it up on Café. There's a couple ways to do that. If you have a Macintosh, you can bring it into Photos and then export as a JPEG. There's a number of articles just on Google, just using HEIC to JPEG conversion with step-by-step directions on how to do it off your phone, like directly from the phone. And there's converters. So for instance, Molly F uses Cloud Convert, which will do this conversion as well as many others. There's a number of free platforms for converting files, for instance, a Word file to a PDF, but in this case for images. So after you've uploaded the file, it is going to require that you fill out information fields. And this gets a little tedious, but put the time in up front and fill out all these fields. Why? It's going to ask you the title of your work, medium, dimensions. If it's 2D work, use 0 for depth, like a painting. Is it for sale or was it for sale? This is important in public art because a panel will want to know if they commission a certain artist, how much will their dollar buy them? So if you show an example of a mural at 10 by 10 feet, was that a $100 mural or was it a $10,000 mural? So getting the price in there is really important. How old is it? And then the other question that's sometimes confusing, it'll ask you art in public places, ? What this is saying is this artwork installed somewhere where the public can freely visit it without restriction? For instance, a mural on the outside of a wall at a grocery store. If so, check the box. If it's installed, say, in a private home that nobody can go see, no, it's not an art in public place. So there's a description field, and it gives you plenty of room to provide detailed description. For instance, if you want to say, this artwork was commissioned by the State Council on the Arts through its Art in Public Places program on the side of the courthouse parking garage. So you can give a lot of information there. So why do we want you to fill out all that information? And I'm going to show you in a minute what the panel sees. When they see your image, there's a place to click, and all that information will pop up in front of them to help them assess your application. So I'm going to toggle here. I'm probably going to have to sign back in. Yes, I have to sign back into Café. So this is what a juror sees when they log in to Café. This is the juror's view. So you can see, for instance, for this particular call, if I were grading these, there were 246 applications received. And I've asked my friend Peter Diepenbrock, who applies to a number of things, if I could show his application, and he has graciously said yes. Go, because I don't want to show anybody's application who hasn't given me permission. When a juror is grading and they click on a particular artwork, a particular application to view it, this is what they get on their screen. So the first thing is the image isn't huge on their screen to begin with. And sometimes people make composite images with more than one photo, maybe some text, maybe a paragraph of description. It's really hard for a panel to see that on this small screen. So we recommend that you place one image and not make a PDF or a composite. There is an option to go to full screen. It looks like this when you go to full screen, and it does allow panelists to scroll in. This is a new feature. The old Café did not allow that. So as I hover, does everybody see the little eye popping up there?
Yes.
As a panelist, if I click on this, this pops up. This is all those answers that you filled out in those form fields. Name of the artist, what's the title of the piece, when was it created, in this case 2009, dimensions. He clicked no for art in public places. This is in fact in public. It was for sale. It was commissioned at, $185. So this is actually a typo. This was a commission of $185,000. So this shows up when the panel is looking at things. In this particular call, we allowed the artist to upload 6 images. So each of these, the information is readily available to the panel, but only if you fill out the fields. So as I go through this, I can find information on all of these. Here's a video. And then after reviewing the images, this is what the panelist will see next. Here's thumbnails of the pieces he uploaded. Here's his name. He was applying for the opportunity at Horace Mann for the exterior. This is not super obvious, but it says click here to view form answers. So the other questions we asked in the application pop out here so that the panel can view them right there in connection with the images at the time they're grading. So here's his upload, his bio and statement, link to his website. Whatever questions were asked are available right there. And then the next thing that the panelist will do is score it. 7 is a high score. 1 is you don't like it very much. Any comments can be added there, and they have to save their score. And that takes them to the next to the next application. So I love showing artists what the back end of this looks like so that they understand how their materials will be viewed by the panel and hopefully get the most effective materials in their application. Okay, so I'm gonna go back. Everybody still with me? Okay, so this sounds super obvious, but if it's not your creative work, please don't put it in your portfolio unless the person is listed as a partner in your application. If you worked as an assistant or a fabricator, you can include that in your list of qualifications in the text field, but do not include other people's creations in your portfolio. This is the most extreme example I've seen. In a recent application, an artist submitted this image with their application. This is the World Trade Center memorial. Very well known that it was created by 2 artists. When I looked at the artist's name on the application, the artist's name was not, I'm sorry, my touchpad's really sensitive. Go back. The artist's name was not Peter Walker when they were applying. So in contacting the artist, I asked the artist what their relationship was to this piece and why it was in their portfolio. And the artist's answer was that they have partnered in the past with the person who engineered the water feature, and they would anticipate partnering in the future with that engineer. So that was a stretch. This was not their creative capital. So it was disqualified. Okay, so after you've added your artwork, the next thing is to actually go find some artwork to apply to. So we're still going down the line here. You went to my profile, my portfolio. Now someone's going to apply to calls. I put in here search Rhode Island. So if you wanted to see what were local to Rhode Island, to New England, if you were looking for public art, there's any number of filters here to look for opportunities. If you wanted to see what's coming up with a deadline, this is where you do it. So I put an example here. So for instance, if you search right now under Rhode Island, under RISCA, Rhode Island State Council on the Arts, or public art, you would get the call currently open, the Rhode Island State Police Southern Barracks. Let me see what this will, and this is what it looks like after you click on it to get more information. So you can visit RISCA's website. Here's the contact. How many days remaining to the deadline? It's public art. Its eligibility is regional. It has a budget of 100,000. You can put 6 images in or up to 10. You can read all this detail here about this particular call. If it's of interest, you click apply now. View site details. This is not super obvious, but if somebody wants to view the site details, this pops out. Let's see. It only lets us put 1 image there. So a lot of times we put additional images on the RISCA site, and there's usually a link to that. Deadline, eligibility, pet peeve, people who apply to calls that they're not eligible for. So this is open to Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, and New York. I've had to kick out 5 artists who are from California, didn't read the eligibility. So here's some statements about that. You go through all of this, and it should say apply again at the bottom. You can print it, you can get more if you require technical support. So this is what this looks like. In your application, we no longer require an upload of a resume or a CV. It used to be you would upload your existing document. So what we found is that panelists do not want to download all of those files onto their personal device, so they tend to not read them. So instead, we have provided a field in which you can cut and paste whatever text an artist best feels represents their practice and what they want a panel to know about them. If that's your resume or your CV, you can cut and paste it in there. If you prefer a narrative biography, go for it. If you want a statement about your artistic practice or your lived experience relative to a particular opportunity, put in whatever you want the panel to know there. Given that most panelists are reviewing about 300 applications for public art, make sure that whatever is most important is at the top of that, because you can't guarantee that they're going to scroll through 17 pages of an academic CV. So that's my advice on that. What do you want to put in your application? Like I said, read the call, make sure that you're eligible for it. If you have a question, contact the administrator and ask beforehand. And really read the call and understand what is desired here. So I put 2 examples here. If the call says they're looking for exterior sculpture, don't give me 10 pictures of framed oil paintings. That's not relative to this particular call. If it says no artwork will be considered for the walls, a mural portfolio may not resonate with the panel unless you are proposing to create a structure on which to paint those murals. That is actually a possibility in some of these calls. So make sure what you submit is relevant. Sometimes people actually don't hit the submit button and they think they've applied and it's still sitting in draft. It happens to all of us. I found an email in my draft folder this morning. I thought it went out yesterday. It was still sitting in draft. Café will send you an email receipt that confirms that they received it. If you don't get that email, go back and make sure you actually submitted it. And use an email address that you check. Sometimes people use older ones or ones that they don't mind getting junk mail at. But this is how Café will communicate with you, and also whoever's running the opportunity if they actually want to hire you for this job. If you pay a fee, like RISCA calls don't charge a fee to apply, but many other calls do, save the receipt and deduct it on your taxes. Molly F., do you want to talk about deadlines?
Oh, you know I do.
So
I always want to talk about deadlines. So here, and this, a lot of this, actually, 100% of this applies to basically anything you're going to apply for. Public art calls, RISCA grants, anything, like grants outside of RISCA, whatever. So we get, and this is super fresh in my mind because, as you may know, we just had a grant application deadline last week. So here are some things to remember. If you need help, reach out to the staff, RISCA staff, or the staff of whatever grant or proposal you're applying for in advance. We are typically flooded with panicked questions the day of the deadline, frequently after 5 p.m. on the deadline day, and we just don't have the capacity to help at that point. But most of our calls or grants are open for application for a month or more.
yeah.
If you're paying attention at the beginning of that and ask us for support earlier on, we can help you with your application. The great thing about all of this is that the Mollies, the RISCA Mollies, don't actually make decisions. We're just the facilitators of the decisions. So part of our job is to help you. We want you to have the best application that you can, that like represents your artwork the best as it can be. So we have office hours. You can email us for appointments. Here's some things that are really important. Deadline extensions are not possible. We would either have to extend the deadline for everyone or no one, and we're not going to extend the deadline for everyone. So regardless of what comes up in your life, there's no exceptions to this. If you have technical difficulties at 11:50 p.m. on the deadline day, we won't give you an extension the next day. If your cat dies, we'll be really sad and really empathetic, but we won't be able to give you a deadline extension. This is why you should always sort of give yourself a deadline of like a week before the actual deadline. Then almost all the deadlines are 11:59 p.m.
Yep.
One of the things that is important is that we are humans that will not work until 11:59 p.m. So if you email us panicked at 11:50 p.m. or 11:55 p.m. or try and call us, we won't be there to help you. And there's no deadline extension, so you're out of luck. So if it's like 3 p.m. on that deadline day, we'll do our best to help you, but we go home to our lives. As you saw, we both have a number of dependents, 2 of whom sometimes need help using the bathroom. None of those are human. Yeah, and so this is, don't wait until the last day to prepare your application. You might have image file issues, you might have technical problems, your laptop might crap out and you don't have time to go to the library. Like, anything could come up. Don't wait till the last minute. And then here's the job interview slide. Remember that particularly for public art, it really is sort of like a job interview. Because the public art process, once you move forward in the commissioning process, is so much about collaboration with a wide variety of sometimes difficult stakeholders and a lot of some complex like legal and insurance issues. When the jurors are looking at your application, they want to know that you're going to be able to get the job done. So if your application is really poorly prepared or really late or really wrong or adversarial, they're going to know that they're probably not going to have a solid collaboration with you moving forward.
Yeah, and in public art, there's a lot of bureaucratic steps that have to happen. Things like, approval by the Building Code Commission. So a simple thing like asking for a deadline extension because somebody didn't check the instructions might be a red flag in an application like that. That maybe the artist can't handle that process. So, yep. So that's my thing is view your application as a job interview. I recommend that people start the application minimum a week beforehand, because as you go through it, you may find where you have questions and there's still time to then get the answer to that question. I'm sure Molly F does the same thing. I turn off my phone after 5 p.m. And the next day I always get a number of phone calls asking me to extend the deadline. Café just flat out doesn't allow it. So Café is a resource that we pay a fee for, and the deadline is the deadline once the deadline has passed. We have the option to extend it before the deadline. So if we're not getting enough applications, we might extend it by 2 weeks. But once it's passed, that becomes locked in place, and I have no option to do it. People will also send me files to my personal email and say, oh, I missed the deadline. Here's my application in your email. Can you include it anyway? And the answer is no, again, because panelists do not want all those files on their personal device. So that's my spiel about the most common mistakes and places where individual artists can improve their applications. And then, so on the heels of that, we made a list of resources. It's not comprehensive. It's not everything. It's just the ones that come easily to mind and are super helpful. So Café has Café Help, and they also have hours during which you can request chat or phone help with your application. How to contact RISCA staff. There's a directory on the RISCA homepage. We usually offer drop-in office hours, either on Zoom, usually on Zoom, right, Molly? I've done them in person where people can come to a specific facility to view the public art opportunity and ask me questions on site in advance of applying. I stuck in how to convert iPhone photos. That's a really common question. we have some tutorials up on the RISCA website. There's a number of websites that have public art specific learning. Public Art Network, Forecast Public Art, Pittsburgh Office of Public Art has lots and lots and lots of learning webinars that are free and available all the time. Public Art Dialogue, CodaWorks, again, not all inclusive, just some immediate ones that come immediately to mind. And some places, this is sort of regional, places to find opportunities in public art. Sign up for the RISCA newsletter, check our blog periodically, and also check the Artists and Creatives of Rhode Island Facebook, which is called the public facing social media of RISCA, where opportunities are posted. The NIFA blog has a monthly posting on opportunities. Mass Cultural Council and the ArtSake has a weekly posting of opportunities. Of course, you're going to check Café. Artwork Archive has opportunities. So there's some resources here. But then the other thing is sign up for emails from other local entities. City of Providence has a public art program. Pawtucket Public Art post calls. Avenue Concept, a private nonprofit, post calls usually in the spring. Providence Art Club has some opportunities. City of East Providence is commissioning public art, et cetera, et cetera. Don't be afraid of email. Sign up for email and make sure you look at it. I think I've run out of talk.
So for everybody attending in real life, and by real life, I mean on Zoom, I'm going to stop the recording. So thank you all for watching this recording. If you have questions, please reach out to either either of the Mollies. And if you accidentally reach out to the wrong Molly, do not stress. That's very normal and we won't be mad. And we also, as you saw from the Venn diagrams, understand why you could be confused.